Landrum Roberts, Pat Smith, Conrad Van Order hanging out as Iron Bowl week continues here on the show. We hope that you can join us from Social Taco beginning at 11 o'clock when the doors open. We already have a couple of people that are here, Conrad. We got Don and Stan, the Auburn Godfather, hanging out.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's awesome to see all the fans getting here early, and yeah, hopefully a good crowd today. Even with the weather, we'll have a lot of people show up and want to talk some football, eat some chicken feathers, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, socialtaco.bar for more information if you want to check that out. We had college basketball last night. Auburn in action in a tournament there in Las Vegas. Alabama in action as well against Gonzaga. Auburn gets the win over Oregon, an 11-point win. And then a little bit later on, it was Alabama falling to Gonzaga and the Bulldogs. That's a good Gonzaga team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They did a really good job of kind of closing out the final minutes of the game where Alabama got pretty gassed. But it was an exciting game as a whole, really. Just Gonzaga, a little too much size, a little too physical, and reminded you a lot of the Purdue game and the struggles that Alabama had there in that matchup.
It certainly did. We got a big show that's lined up today. We got Jason Caldwell. Mike Griffith's going to lead us off. We'll talk college football playoff rankings, SEC race, and just the Iron Bowl. Mike, very unique perspective from Mike. He covered Auburn. He covered Alabama. Now he covers the SEC there at Dog Nation. Rob Pate, former Auburn player, grew up an Alabama fan, has been a part of this rivalry there as a player for Auburn. He's at 11:45. Rodney Orr of Tider Insider at noon. We got Ty Richardson from the great state of Arkansas at 12:30. Fill us in on what is going on in that head coaching search with Hunter Yurachek and others. And also you got Dimitri Rabinos meet at 1 o'clock, and we'll see what he's got loaded up for the college football bubble bath. How's everybody doing?
We're doing good. Doing real good.
I didn't expect the storms.
Stuff working.
Yeah. It's all right.
Yeah, we'll get it figured out. Working through some audio issues here early on this morning, but we invite your phone calls as always and your text 205-834-9450 800-239-WJOX. Conrad, got college football playoff rankings coming up tonight. We discussed it briefly yesterday, but based on if you want to look at the AP and the coaches poll or any other metric, looks like it should be relatively cut and dry this week before we got a lot of head-to-head matchups that'll dictate a lot coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I would expect the top 10 or so probably stays the same. Maybe Oregon, you see them move up after that win over USC, but I think if you're looking for changes in the playoff rankings, a lot of that will come in the back half, maybe even between like 20 and 25 with what do they do with all these ACC schools. Do we see another group of 5 join Tulane in the rankings? I think those are the things that are going to be very interesting to watch tonight because I don't think, Alabama's not going to magically jump over Notre Dame. Miami's not going to magically get that head-to-head rewarded. I think a lot of what we're looking forward to is what do you hear from Hunter Yurachek? Does he have better answers to the questions last week? Because he felt a little underprepared, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to hear from Yurachek and kind of how that committee view things 1 week later, but not a lot of changes expected in the top 10 or top 12 even.
There's so many games. I mean, we can start with Alabama and what the Iron Bowl means and potential implications, what that means for the college football playoff rankings. A loss to Auburn most likely, it's not for certain, set in stone, but most likely eliminates Alabama for a second consecutive year from the college football playoff. A win almost guarantees Alabama of a college football playoff spot. We think if we look off of precedent and not getting dinged for potentially losing in the conference championship game, but then are you splitting hairs if it comes down to margin of victory and you're playing a team like Texas A&M?
Yeah, that's going to be the big question, and I think a lot of people after last week, well, it's just interesting because Mack Rhodes a couple of weeks ago had said, yeah, we kind of view that as it's almost like a reward, right? You made the conference title game, so it's hard to view that in a negative light against a team that was already, let's say, in the top 12 before losing in a conference title game. Then you hear Yurachek last week. All he says is, well, it's a 13th data point. Don't know if that's good. Don't know if that's bad. But, yeah, if you're Alabama, certainly you want to try to get there with a win over Auburn and win, but will be very interesting if it's let's say a one-score loss by Alabama do they get to stay in the playoff like SMU did last year after losing to Clemson? I think that's what a lot of people are going to be curious about moving forward the next couple of weeks.
Now, it would be really good to try to hear Hunter Yurachek in regards to how he's going to present everything, concerning the fact that he still doesn't have a head football coach at Arkansas.
No, he's a busy man. It's again, I just go back. I'll give him a pass for last week. It's the first week. It was a unique situation having to make this change in the middle of the season with the chairman of the college football playoff committee. But I need to hear more from him this week. I need more confidence. When he gives me an answer, I want to feel he's convicted and why he's answering the question that way. Last week, I felt like he was just kind of throwing stuff out there.
Yeah, and to be fair to Hunter Yurachek, I don't think that he ever had any idea that he was going to be a part of this. Not a part of the College Football Playoff Committee, but a part of trying to explain, which is an impossible task. Some have done it better than others, and by doing it better than others, I mean avoiding some of the obvious, but you're going to get talking out of both sides of your mouth, but you're right. Hopefully he can come back with a better presentation and explanation. It should be a little bit easier this week for him.
Yeah, it should be a little bit clearer, not as many changes going on. But again, it's you just know the committee doesn't want to be in a situation where after the conference championship games they're making these drastic changes. And maybe that was what will happen, but going to be interesting if they stick with their merits. Are they still counting more on good losses more than good wins, or do they kind of have a change of heart after the backlash from last week? Going to be interesting, and we will find out tonight.
Our buddy Mike Griffith joining us now. He covers the SEC for DogNation.com and the AJC, and all of our guests join us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Happy Thanksgiving week, Mike. How are you?
Doing great, guys. Thank you.
We're trying to project what we could get tonight from the college football playoff rankings, and namely one here, Hunter Yurachek, but we both agree that this week should be pretty cut and dry as far as what they displayed to us in giving their top 12 and then so on, because we got a lot of games that will dictate a lot coming up this weekend. Mike, your thoughts on tonight and anything out of the ordinary that we could potentially see?
I wouldn't be surprised to see Oregon go past Ole Miss. You know, I think Oregon had a really good win, and I just don't know how you can look at the Ole Miss program the same right now, you know, with everything going on. And I don't know how good I guess I'm curious about Ole Miss right now. I got my questions. I mean, they weren't dominant against Florida, and you know that win over Florida doesn't look as good now that Tennessee went into the swamp and really ran roughshod over Florida. Florida's kind of been hot and cold, right? We saw them beat Texas. Saw them get beat pretty handily, though, by Miami. That's kind of the team. Miami's the team that's really, the curious team in terms of how do they get ranked and where they should be. And, should we be looking at the head-to-head win over Notre Dame? The first set of rankings was just kind of like throwing cold water and a slap in the face. Like, I want to say Notre Dame was 10 and Miami was 18 or 19. It was just like, wait a minute. What is with this disparity? It's almost like they were saying, and not only do we have Notre Dame ranked higher, but we have them ranked so much higher that we're not even going to look at the thought that we should consider the head-to-head. And it's kind of like, all right, I know Miami, had a loss to Louisville, I believe, and, SMU on the road. But my goodness, I mean, their win over Florida was very convincing. And when they beat South Florida was playing good football and, still kind of in the conversation of the group of five. And they beat Notre Dame head-to-head. And I guess that's my big hang-up is I think head-to-head matters. I mean, that's why I think, we know it matters in the SEC tiebreaker, and that's why Alabama, if they take care of business against Auburn, gets in ahead of Georgia. And I would go so far as to say, and not a lot of people necessarily agree with me around here, but if Alabama were to win the SEC championship game, I'm not so sure I wouldn't move Alabama back ahead of Georgia again, even with one more loss, because they played that extra game and they won the league. And so maybe I think Alabama should deserve a bye. But is it whether you deserve it or is it where you should be ranked? And do we believe that if Alabama beats A&M, provided both teams win, that they would be one of the top 4 teams in the country? I would say yes, because I put my eggs in the basket of quality wins. And then head-to-head, of course.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about Hunter Yurachek. So last week was I guess the first week we saw him as the chairperson after what happened with Mac Rhodes. What was your assessment of him? Because I felt maybe he was a little unprepared, maybe he was caught off guard by certain questions, but what were your impressions of the first week of Hunter Yurachek, and do you think it'll be more impressive tonight when he's on the broadcast?
Well, I think it's hard, right? It's like, the David Lee Roth, Sammy Hagar deal. I mean, it's a different voice, right? It's the same band, but it's a different voice, and there's going to be different. The consistency's lacking, which consistency is kind of an oxymoron for this committee. So you had to figure that whoever they plugged in there was going to be in a difficult circumstance. So I don't take it out on Hunter Yurachek. You're right as far as preparation. I don't know what he could have done other than looked at the first two transcripts of what Mac Rhodes said and kind of have a vibe and a feel. The one thing I noticed this year that's different on that teleconference is they're not. It almost seems like they're looking to get some, I don't know, different kinds of people. There's, for the people that don't know, on this weekly teleconference, a lot of people get on it and then they select who gets to ask the questions, and it's blind. Like if you got a question, press 1, and you don't know if you're going to get picked or not. Well, last year I was getting picked darn every week because I've done this a long time, and my questions are usually pretty salient and on target. But you got some Yahoo on there asking, well, what about if Michigan beats Ohio State in 2 weeks? Like, wait a minute, was that a journalist, or did some fan get the number? Because that's not a question. That's ridiculous. Like, who are these people that are getting on there and getting these credentials and wasting our time, with some fan-like question like that? And good grief, I mean, it was just so like, who are now we'll talk to so-and-so from the Timber Tuck, blog in Cumbuck City, Iowa. He's like, what? Who's asking the question? I've never heard of this person. Do they have a media credential? I mean, I don't get it. So I kind of feel like that's kind of affected the quality of question, and kind of affects the quality of answer. It's kind of like the ingredients. Anytime you make a meal, good questions make for a good press conference and give newsmakers opportunities to explain important things, because the people that ask the questions understand, what people want to know. Like you guys, I come on your show every week and you ask really good questions because you have a pulse of what people want to know, and there's no better college football city than Birmingham. Atlanta challenges. I think Atlanta challenges now College Football Hall of Fame, but it's just an educated audience, and it's just this is our local language, right? It's not like the Northeast or the Midwest where they speak NFL first and college is a second language. Like, this is our livelihood and what we breathe and eat and sleep and digest and want to get to the bottom of. And that College Football Playoff Selection Committee teleconference of late has been, more carnival-like than anything, feels like.
All right, Mike, so let me ask you this. A lot of Alabama folks a little nervous because even if they beat Auburn, the feeling is that they better not have a goose egg in Atlanta in the SEC championship, or they could face the potential of not making the CFP. Where are you in regards to if Alabama makes it to the SEC championship game but lose, doesn't matter the number, but they lose, are they in the CFP?
Well, listen, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask because I am incredibly biased. I have had the Alabama blinders on. I think Alabama is one of the best teams in college football. I'm still in denial over the Oklahoma loss. I can't explain away Florida State. But the Alabama that I've seen against Georgia is one of the best teams in college football. So I am biased. I think Kalen DeBoer is an outstanding coach. I think Ty Simpson is the quarterback I would choose over any quarterback in the country. So I'm very biased towards Alabama. I will just tell you that up front. I know I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And I know that I think that Alabama is really good. And I just can't imagine them losing to Auburn or losing to Texas A&M. I could imagine Georgia beating them in a rematch, but that wouldn't be a given. I think it's 50-50 going in if there's a rematch. I have that much faith in Ty Simpson. And again, I know that the Oklahoma game didn't go well. But sometimes teams have your number. And if you get to see them again, you can change that. I mean, we saw that with Georgia in 2021. I mean, Alabama put the hammer down on Stetson Bennett. Everybody talks about missing a receiver. It wasn't that. It was, the way that defense, what they forced, 2 or 3 3-and-outs in a row when Bama won that 2021 SEC title game. They shut down Stetson Bennett in the offense. And and were able to score points on what I think was the best defense I saw since 1986. They were the Miami Dolphins to Georgia's 85 Bears in that game. So I'm biased towards Alabama. So I probably don't have the most objective opinion here because I just think they're that good. So I can't imagine them not being in the playoff. What I could imagine, though, is if for some chance they were to lose at Auburn or lose A&M, and if this Penn State thing is for real and they offer the guy a boatload, and Alabama, isn't charged up, and who could be on that? Have you guys even raised the specter of Lane Kiffin being in play? If there was something to have we gotten that far-fetched, or is that just too crazy?
It's something that I will say our listeners have gravitated towards that scenario, and that's actually perfect because I wanted to ask you about that, Mike, and just kind of your thoughts on the Lane Kiffin situation, the announcement we got on Friday. Allegedly, we're going to get an answer on his future this Saturday after the Egg Bowl. Just your thoughts on the statement, the meeting on Friday, and what it all means for Lane Kiffin and where he's going to be next year.
Well, I believe that perception overtakes reality. Okay, and the reality of the situation is that Kiffin was in a no-win situation on how he was going to handle this. Okay, that is the reality of it. But the perception is of someone that was unfaithful. And even if he stays, it's not going to be the same. So the Lane Kiffin magic is over at Ole Miss, in my opinion, even if he stays. Because now he's shown that he's willing to take a look, right? The wife knows that the husband dated somebody else. And he may stay. She's begging. She'll give him another chance. But it's not going to be the same. People have felt alienated, and coaches are going to use it against him in recruiting. You want to go play for them? You really want to go play? Because he may leave. He may leave. You may have a championship team, and that coach is going to send his family to other places to look around. Do you really want to play for that school? Where are you going to go the next year? Is he going to take you with him? And then if you're Ole Miss, and people will let him coach it out. Let him go. Well, what? Okay, coach it out. What's he doing? Is he meeting with Trenton and Chambliss saying, hey, so here's where I would have you living in LSU if I take you with me. I mean, you're leaving you're leaving the fox in the hen house. This is just the reality. Nobody wants to hear that. I'm sorry. It's uncomfortable to think about. But if Lane Kiffin does take another job, he's going to take some players with him. I mean, that's how Curt Cignetti built Indiana. He took a lot of those James Madison guys with him and built the culture. And I'm not saying he's going to, bring 12 guys with him, but if he brings a few guys, and even if he doesn't, there's going to be guys that enter the portal before the next guy hits town. I mean, Bama fans know that song. I mean, it cost you Caleb Downs. If Saban stays, Caleb Downs ain't going anywhere. And Kalen DeBoer never had a shot. Not fair to him. The next guy's got to come in. So it's awkward, but it's where we're at because of the calendar and the dynamics. And let's face it, I mean, Lane Kiffin has never really, set in roots anywhere. I mean, he came to Tennessee, left after 1 year, left a really good job, left him under investigation, by the way. Recruited some dudes that weren't exactly Citizen of the Year material. And then goes to USC. That thing goes up in smoke, and I'm not going to blame him for that because I think Pete Carroll was amazing there. Right coach, right time. It would be hard for anybody to resurrect what USC had in Kiffin's first run there as an assistant. Comes to Alabama. Saban, squeezes the juice out of him. Resurrects his career. Goes to Florida Atlantic. 3 years of good behavior, whatever. Gets a shot. Ole Miss takes a shot on him. Let's face it, there were questions about Lane Kiffin, and Ole Miss takes a shot on him, and he pays off. And they're giving him everything that he wants. Everything. I mean, Keith Carter couldn't give more. Ole Miss fans couldn't be any better to this guy. It just seems like, wow, this is your program. You got all this control, all this power, all this leniency. And you say, well, you're still flirting with other was he flirting or is he doing research? I guess the eye's in the beholder. But, it's not what we expect from college football. We like the idea of a coach going somewhere and settling down roots and making it his program. We still maybe that's just not realistic anymore. But I see it with Kirby Smart. I saw it, of course, with Nick Saban. There's been some coaches that have pulled that off. And we all thought that, wow, Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, they really found each other. They really need, they're that awkward couple, you're like, well, look at that. They actually worked out pretty good. They're both a little different, and they seem to be pretty happy together. But now Lane's a big deal, and maybe little Old Miss isn't enough for him anymore. Maybe he wants, his little Old Miss isn't enough. And maybe there's prettier things in the Louisiana and Florida waiting for him. In his mind, those are more attractive programs, right? Bigger ceiling, at least he thinks so. But it's definitely been must-see TV, and Lane hasn't disappointed us. He's entertaining, he's fun, regardless of what you think of the guy. It's hard not to watch and pay attention because he's clever and entertainment value.
That is Mike Griffith from the AJC, DogNation.com. Mike, hope you and your family have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We got a lot to talk about next week.
Oh, my goodness. I can't wait for this weekend. It's the theater, the football. This is a great college football weekend. I hope everybody really enjoys it and stays behind their programs. These are challenging times for folks, but you know what? This is what separates the best fans from the fringe fans, in my opinion. So happy Thanksgiving, guys. Have a great week.
Hey, thank you, Mike. You too. Happy Thanksgiving. We're live at Social Taco. Bottom of the hour, we'll talk to Jason Caldwell from Auburn Undercover. So much straight ahead here at Social Taco.
.25, welcome back. We're inside a Social Taco up in the terrace. Doors open at 11 o'clock. Enjoy the Mix and Match Taco Tuesday. Get all of the food that you're most likely not going to get on Thursday for Thanksgiving. Come and enjoy it now here at Social Taco. Landrum Roberts, Pat Smith, Conrad Van Order. We already heard from Mike Griffith. We've got Jason Caldwell from Auburn Undercover. Give us the latest, not only previewing, Pat, the game coming up Saturday. We heard from DJ Durkin and Kayla DeBoer yesterday, but also to talk about the head coaching search and potentially where that's leading. So Jason's going to join us, and then we got Rob Pate talking Auburn at 11:45.
It was interesting. A lot of rumors still going around about the carousel in the Southeastern Conference. A lot of rumors last night about Lane Kiffin. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Could there be a mystery team in the SEC that he could end up with? I think back, Conrad, to that text message we got yesterday when someone texted in and said, okay, guys, this is what's actually going to happen. Sarkisian's going to go to the Tennessee Titans. Texas is going to come open. And then all of a sudden, Lane Kiffin's going to bolt for Austin, Texas, instead of going to Gainesville or going to Baton Rouge. That was the text yesterday. So it got me thinking, what if, and this is serious, so what if we get an announcement Saturday that Lane Kiffin is not returning in 2026 to Ole Miss, but that's all we get? There's no,
think
like,
that's
he's
fairly
going
likely
to Baton Rouge. He's not going to Gainesville. Basically, he's declaring himself a complete free agent. Whereas whether it's he wants to potentially kick the tires on an NFL job or there's another SEC job, whether it's in Baton Rouge, whether it's in Gainesville, or he's waiting for his buddy in Austin to maybe take a job in the NFL. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see him doing that.
I don't think anything's too far-fetched when it comes to Lane Kiffin, and I kind of like the idea of where you're going. And for someone who has prominently talked about free agency since NIL and the transfer portal, that would be fitting that Lane Kiffin declares himself basically a free agent without saying it, and everybody continues to speculate on where he's going to land.
Well, and I was about to say, the fact that it's been dragged on this long, I think gives some credence maybe to that as a – maybe he has made up his mind in the sense of, all right, if this is what's available, if I'm picking between these three jobs, then I'm going to go here. But I don't want to give an answer yet because what if Texas opens? What if Alabama opens? What if the Tennessee Titans give me a phone call, right? I do think that the longer this drags out, the more viable that scenario actually is of, all right, Lane Kiffin is in a good spot, but maybe he has that trump card kind of waiting to see if it gets played, and if so, that's really the big fish that he's looking for. Because we know, right, if hypothetically, right, if Mike just talked about it, if Alabama came open, we understand that would be at the top, that is his dream job, right? And so if you're Lane Kiffin and you feel like there's even a 1% chance that job opens in the next couple of months, why would you go ahead and take another job if that one's on the table? And we know Jimmy Sexton is orchestrating all this behind the scenes.
Well, and maybe it's not just one job. Maybe it's a couple of jobs that he would have his eye on and say, that would. Is there one job in particular? Take out Alabama and any potential scenario there. But Pat, is there one job that you think Lane Kiffin wins a championship if he goes there and coaches? Not talking longevity. Does he get one?
Are you talking about anywhere in the SEC or the ones
that we talked
predominantly
about?
the two that's currently open?
The two that are currently open.
I mean, I still say LSU just because it is the flagship university of the state. We know about the recruiting prowess in the state. We know that they will put forth the money to go out and get stuff. So, to me, it would be LSU.
But the more I think about with Layla and Knox going to Gainesville and then the plane and the whole Baton Rouge and the LSU connection, something tells me it's neither one of those now. It's either he's staying at Ole Miss or we get the statement that Pat said, what if he comes out and says, I will not be returning, and that's it.
Yeah, and I guess, with what Pat's saying about LSU as well, I know it was a completely different era, and so it's, at what point do we stop looking at it this way? Because before Brian Kelly got fired, what was the narrative? Well, your last three head coaches, Ed Orgeron, who, I think he's an entertaining guy. I don't think any of us think he's an elite college football coach. He won a title. Les Miles, as goofy as he was, he won a title. Nick Saban won a title. I just wonder how far away you get from that before that stops being the expectation. But I think now it is, right? If you hire Lane Kiffin, if you're LSU, those people are going to expect you're competing for a national title in the next 3 to 4 years.
The question, though, is those guys won titles, but how many of those titles came pre-NIL and transfer portal era?
Exactly.
Because
it's a completely different
The game's
world.
changed a little bit.
When we come back on Three-Man Front, Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover, will join the program. We'll get the very latest on the Auburn coaching search and an Iron Bowl preview straight ahead here on Jocks. It's 10:34. Welcome back. We're live at Social Taco on an absolutely disgusting day outside, but you can come and enjoy lunch with us.
Way to sell it.
We're having a great time inside.
Well, I mean,
It is disgusting.
It
outside.
is. It's terrible. That's why you need to come and have lunch with us and enjoy the festivities here at Social Taco. Joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, good friend of the program, Jason Caldwell from Auburn Undercover, joins us now. Jason, I want to start with Deuce Knight. I want to go back to Saturday because obviously you cover the team. You're around these guys on a daily basis. How impressive was Deuce Knight? I know the opponent, but just seeing Deuce go through what he did and was able to get those 6 touchdowns over the weekend.
Yeah, I've seen Auburn play a lot worse opponents than Mercer. Saw one earlier this year. I think Mercer's probably better than Ball State was. And so to do what he did, I mean, like It's funny because last week we did our live show, and I told Nathan King, I said, I think he's going to have a 75-yard run at some point in this game. Did I think it was going to be the first play of the game? No, I did not. But that's just what he is and who he is. Watching him in high school, I hated to throw the comparison on him that I did, but I was like, look, I think there's a lot of Vince Young in him, and you saw a little bit of that last weekend where it looks effortless and nobody can catch him or touch him because he keeps running away from guys. And I thought the biggest thing was probably his patience in the pocket. He didn't take off running. He stood in there, and if there was a throw to be made, he made one, and if not, then he kind of found some room with his legs. So I thought for a guy that's making his first start, I think you could see the 2 weeks of prep time, how valuable that was for him to get him comfort, do things he likes, do things he can do, and tailor something to him. I thought that was a big deal.
Jason, besides the points on the scoreboard, the yards on the stat sheet, this Auburn defense or Auburn offense looks much different. Certainly in the overtime loss to Vanderbilt, you just mentioned what Deuce Knight was able to do and others against Mercer. But what's the biggest difference you can see, just eyeball test from schematically what we're getting from Derek Nixon in that offense as opposed to when Hugh Freeze was there on the sideline?
Yeah, I think probably maybe one of the biggest things is you just getting the ball out of the hands of the quarterback. It's a lot less long developing routes for the wide receivers. Get guys in space, give them the football. I think that's been as big as anything. I think tempo has been the other big part of that. I've been screaming it for several years, going all the way back to Gus Malzahn. You got to get back to doing some tempo because, especially when your offensive line's struggling, to me, nothing makes it easier for those guys than just getting to the line of scrimmage and snapping the football because it limits what the defense can do on the other side. I think that's helped as much as anything. You're basically forcing the defense to line up, and then you go, and so you have a pretty good idea of what somebody's going to do. So I think tempo's been good. I think just not simplifying in terms of they're still doing a lot of things, but I think if you're going to look, let's just get the ball to our best players, get it to them in space, and Eric Singleton's a guy that can really run, and so you're going to be able to find him in the middle of the field, and so I think they've done a good job of doing some of those things.
Jason, I wanted to ask you one more question about Deuce real quick because we heard Durkin yesterday. He kind of had that tongue-in-cheek answer when asked about him being implemented in the game plan for Saturday. So what do you expect? We know Ashton Daniels is going to be the starter for the Iron Bowl, but how much of a factor do you expect Deuce Knight to play in the offensive game plan coming up in the Iron Bowl?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a bunch. You might see him in a situation or two. Maybe you have a few things you want to do in the game to kind of throw a wrinkle in there. But, yeah, I don't expect that all of a sudden you're going to throw him out there in the Iron Bowl and say, okay, go do the same things. I don't know that that's realistic. So maybe there's a couple of certain situations you might want to put him in the game for and do some of those things. But, yeah, I don't think this is a situation where you're going to prepare him to go out and play a whole bunch in this game. Other than now, obviously, if you have to, if you're struggling to do some things, you might say, hey, we're going to do that, but I don't know that that's a plan going in.
Jason, in regards to this game against Alabama, Alabama has definitely won a lot of really close games, and then up until what happened against Oklahoma, they've had a great deal of success after that Florida State game. When you look at this Alabama team coming into Jordan Hare, you have covered a lot of Iron Bowls where most of the time the team that has the most talent wins the game. But this is just a really odd year in college football, to say the very least. Just kind of tell us what you see with this Alabama team and what they can do to maybe disrupt things on the Auburn side of things for Auburn to be confident that they can get a win.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about this game to me is that I think this is probably the least divide of talent in this series probably since 2017. Even though Auburn's 1-6 in the league, and I think you look at this is as talented as an Auburn roster has been in quite a while. It just hasn't shown up on the field, maybe until the last couple of weeks offensively, especially. So that's the thing. I think from a talent standpoint, you look at this season. You look and Auburn's matched up with pretty much everybody they played this year. Can you go out and play that way again on offense and get some stops on defense? That'll be the question. But obviously Alabama's talented. You look at them and Ty Simpson's a guy that's played at a really high level. If you're Auburn, it sounds strange, but you got to put the ball in his hands. So you have to continue to do what they've done, which is stop the run. Alabama hasn't run it a ton, but they did, like DJ Durkin said, they throw it to the wide receivers in space and use that as almost an extension of the running game at times. And so I think for Auburn, I think you have to do those things and see if you can create some pressure on them. And then defensively, they've been really good. They're getting healthy again on the front. It's helped them a lot. So for Auburn, can you get to the line of scrimmage, create some plays? But you know what it's going to be. It's going to be a battle like it always is. And but I think this is an Auburn team that feels like, look, they can go compete with anybody on the schedule. They have done that this year. It just hasn't worked out for a bunch of wins, but they've given themselves opportunities, and I would expect no different on Saturday.
Jason, if we're looking at the stats sheet when the scoreboard in Jordan here goes to 0, if Auburn's a winner, what do you think the two most prominent stats will be that we can read that led to an Auburn win?
Yeah, I mean, we can throw the old cliche one out there already. It's going to be turnovers, one of them. You just can't turn the ball over in games like this on either side and expect to win. I mean, we saw it with Alabama against Oklahoma. Those are the ones you obviously look at as well. And then the other one, to me, is going to be running the football. I don't think you can survive if you're Auburn unless you're able to run the football and have some success. And a quarterback run may be a part of that. Ashton Daniels had 89 yards against Vanderbilt, so he can run it too. But I think you look at the end of this one going, look, if you can run it and slow down the running game. So I think running totals and obviously turnovers are always a key. I think those are going to be two big things on Saturday.
So I know we're still a couple of days away, Jason. You may not have your score prediction prepared as of right now, but if you were to have to just kind of give your early preview, early prediction, who you think wins this game and how it plays out on Saturday, where are you at right now on Tuesday?
Yeah, I think right now you look at Auburn and go, like, they're playing much better offensively, but it still wasn't quite enough at Vanderbilt. You're playing at home this time. I think you're going to have every chance to win the game. It's hard to go right now. It's hard to go, hey, they're going to win, because they just haven't done it to this point in a game like this. But I think it's going to be right down to the wire. So, I think this is a 24, 21, 27, 23 type of game. Right now I would lean towards Alabama just because, this Auburn team hasn't won that type of game just yet. But, they're obviously playing much different than they did when they had these opportunities early in the year.
All right, Jason, I want to pivot before we let you go in regards to the Auburn coaching search. John Cohen has been very close, tight-lipped, cards close to the vest, I should say, in regards to who potentially is going to be the next head coach. First part of the question, is the timing, whoever it might be. Could we have someone by Sunday named as Auburn's next head coach?
Yeah, I think that would be the plan A would be to get that done as quickly as possible. And so that would be, Sunday it starts to come out, maybe not even an official announcement till Monday, but I think everybody might know what's happening on Sunday. But so, yeah, I think Sunday, Monday, to get those things in place to prepare for, you turn around and Wednesday morning start signing day. And so you do have a few guys you're trying to sign in this class. And so I think ideally you would like to do it as quickly as possible.
As Pat mentioned, John Cohen's been pretty buttoned up during this whole search, and you've covered a ton of coaching searches there at Auburn. That has not always been the case, but John Sumrall seems to be the leader in the clubhouse. DJ Durkin, obviously, John Cohen is going to have the conversation with him. As far as those two, your thoughts on John Sumrall potentially being the guy, and is there potentially another candidate that we should be talking about?
Yeah, I think they've kind of been the two that have been the most consistent throughout. You've had an Eli Drinkwitz here, and you've had some other names. Brent Key mentioned some of those guys. And I think Clark Lee's probably the other name that might still be in the mix right now for what he's doing at Vanderbilt. Would he leave Vanderbilt? I don't know. I don't know that he would be, right now the top guy either. But I think he's a guy that would still be, I would consider still in the mix. But John Sumrall is a guy, obviously. I've met a few times here or there, but I've talked to a lot of folks that coached with him or played for him or know him, and it's been overwhelming, the response that people think he's the real deal and going to be a big thing somewhere. And so that's been kind of the take on him. And so I think you look, and I think all of the guys mentioned fit a criteria that John Cohen has said he's looking for, which is he wants somebody with an edge. I think all those folks mentioned have an edge at what they're doing in different ways, and so I do think that's one of the things you look at is kind of what's that look like, with John Summerall. Obviously, we know DJ Durkin has an edge, been around him the last couple of years, and so I think that's one of the things that was important in this one. Obviously, building a program, doing the things, but I think from an Auburn standpoint, sometimes you lean into who you are, and I think from an Auburn standpoint, for a long time it was a physical, hard-nosed, blue-collar defense, do those things, and I think that's what John Cohen wants to get back to with this next hire.
All right, we're going to let you run, Jason, but before we do that, before Saturday, we got to have Thanksgiving on Thursday. Besides the turkey, what's the number one food item that has to be on Jason Caldwell's plate on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it's dressing, not stuffing. Dressing.
There you go.
There we go.
Good Southern term.
That is the number one. Yeah, that is the number one other item for me, and that would be before turkey for me. I'd rather have the dressing than the turkey, but I'll take both of them for sure.
Stuffing.
Yeah, that's a
I had stuffing one time. It had some cut up apples in it.
That's a Yankee term.
Yeah, that's it. No, get rid of that.
Yeah, get rid of that. What is all that?
Well, Jason, you and your family have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Always appreciate your time. It should be a very exciting weekend around Auburn, and always appreciate the great work you guys do at Auburn Undercover.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. He joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Clark Lee, his name kind of still hanging
Still
around.
hanging
Made
around.
quite the impression on the AD.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Little overtime win.
I wonder if Cohen called
He's going to look really good after
Vandy
they beat
Boys
Tennessee.
head coach and said, hey, what can you tell him about Clark Lee?
Maybe so.
Mr. Corbin.
I think Landrum just predicted a Vanderbilt win over the Vols this weekend.
You think Diego, his last that we know of, his last regular season game in college football,
You know the one good thing that
he's
could
going to lose that thing? No.
One good thing that could come if Alabama loses the Iron Bowl, opens up a spot for Vanderbilt, and we're still in play for the ear piercing.
Yes, that is true. I'm not predicting this on like a Rudy type level for a motion picture, but one day, do we get a Diego Pavia movie? I think
we got
do.
a Chad Powers movie, so yeah, we probably will get a Diego Pavia movie.
I think we do. From peeing on the logo in Albuquerque to rising to new heights and
To
the
peeing
Music
on
City.
Auburn 3 times in a row.
Yes,
And Theo Vaughn can play Diego Pavia. It'll be great.
that's right.
It'll be great.
All right, more three-man front live from Social Taco. A lot of guests straight ahead on this wonderful Tuesday. Three-man front on Jocks. 10:51, Jocks 94.5. Appreciate Mike Griffith, Jason Caldwell joining the show. Rob Pate will come up at 11:45 at noon. Rodney Orr. Typically, Rodney's on Thursday, so is Rob Pate, but we're moving them to Tuesday. Ty Richardson, we'll check in with him from Arkansas, see what's going on with their coaching search, and Dimitri Ravanos will join us at 1 o'clock.
It's raining again outside, Pat. I just wanted to let you know.
Great.
Well, you don't want to get caught in the cold, so schedule your system checkup now from a Train comfort specialist. Train has been recognized for 11 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive home comfort partners here at Jock. So go and visit Train.com to find a comfort specialist near you.
All right, so what do you think? What Jason said, still on target for Sumrall, maybe announced on Sunday?
Yeah. Anything can happen. Always reserve that, but I feel good about John Summerall right now being Auburn's next head coach, and yeah, I think you probably get it done. I would expect that. I don't know. Here's the question. Let's just go ahead and play it out. Does he coach I would think he coaches in the conference championship game, but anything beyond that, he would be with Auburn, right?
Yeah, you got
It's
recruiting
just too much
coming
going
up.
on.
Yep. So, got to get busy. Got to get on it.
Yeah. Unless there's somebody else. I gave Jason an out there with the mystery candidate, but I guess he wouldn't be a mystery candidate if anybody knew about it. John Cohen is doing a good job of keeping things under wraps.
Seems to have it figured out. Yeah.
I was told that they had multiple conversations with Clark Lee, so obviously John Cohen is impressed by Clark Lee. Who wouldn't be? Maybe he's done a great job up in Nashville.
He's done a wonderful job, and we all laughed, myself included, when he talked about Vanderbilt being the best college football program in the country. And while it's not the best college football program in the country, you can make an argument here or there. It is certainly this year one of the best college football programs in the country, and what he's been able to do there has been remarkable.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think a lot of people, maybe you got, last year was fun with Pavia and, getting the upset over Alabama and some of the big moments that they had last year. But I think going into this year, if you remember when that SEC documentary came out on Netflix and you kind of got to see a look behind the curtain of Clark Lee and how he runs that program, how he motivates his players. And I know for me, certainly, that was kind of one of those eye-opening moments of, wow, this is a guy that I would absolutely run through a brick wall for a guy like Clark Lee. So it's cool to see him have success, and we'll see if he's going to continue to have that at Vanderbilt or somewhere else. But, he's obviously done a great job there in the last couple of years turning that thing around and beat Auburn this year. So we'll see.
What do you think of Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt might finish 10-2 and not make the college football playoff.
It's crazy to think, we assumed every year if you're 10-2 in the SEC or the Big Ten, you're going to be guaranteed a spot in the playoff. And I guess we have to wait until we expand to 16 teams to have that be true.
That would be 24.
Oh, sorry, we are going to – I forgot. We're going straight to 24.
Yeah, it's 24. That's the Big Ten plan. More the merrier.
Woohoo. We can get Virginia and Georgia Tech and Pitt and Louisville all in the playoff. That would be so great, wouldn't it?
What do Big Ten people eat for Thanksgiving?
Coal.
Coal? Wow.
Boiled potatoes, no seasoning.
Gravel.
Gravel?
Yeah, I don't know. Something awful.
So brutal.
What kind of bet would it take for you to try to eat gravel?
Let's save that for the offseason.
Little 57 stone.
Let me think about that one.
Wash it down with some asphalt.